Yes, sorry.
Everyone, please take your seats. We're having a pretty hard time.
That's an easy one. I'll remember that. Exactly.
Everyone. Before we introduce our next wonderful lady of the HDA, Ron James, who we all know and love, came. He was a dear friend of Earl's as well. He missed the intro here, so Ron, if you'd like to say a few words, please, about her.
I got here a little late because actually I was kind of reeling from the news about losing Earl. Earl was a good friend of mine inside of MUFON, and we did a lot of cool stuff together. One of them was being media relations director for MUFON. I get to just send people television and interview opportunities. So I got Earl on the same Ancient Aliens episode that we were on, and we were all shooting at Sky and me and Earl in this little house in the middle of nowhere in Hollywood. And I still remember when he got there, you know, and we're all just kind of hanging out, shooting Ancient Aliens and drinking iced tea. Earl did a whole lot for the community, and I hope that he gets the recognition that he deserves. He was a fantastic person and a genuine, hardcore UFO investigator. And so I'm going to miss him a lot. My dog was wigging out this morning, which he never does because he knows better than to wake me up. And I remember waking up and looking at my iPad, and it was exactly 4 a.m. And so that was kind of weird. But we also lost Christopher O'Brien, who wrote all the books about cattle mutilations. Chris was staying at my house helping me edit Accidental Truth Next. And I have a video of him walking out the gate, and 5 minutes later he was gone. So for all of us, you know, we just never know. And the idea that we're spiritual beings having a human experience gets me through times like this. I hope it's true. I'm sure it is. It is very. But anyway, here's to Earl, and maybe he'll quit messing with the equipment now.
Thank you, Ron. Okay, here's Christina once again.
Well, I want to introduce Yvonne Smith. And what's so wonderful is that we have someone here to help us all. So we actually have a go-to person. Yvonne is a certified hypnotherapist. For 35 years, she helped abductees heal from PTSD and regain control of their lives. She was mentored by Bud Hopkins, John Mack, and David Jacobs. In 1991, she co-founded the Close Encounter Resource Organization, which is still active and includes members from all over the world. Yvonne has been featured on countless television shows and continues to lecture internationally. She's a strong advocate for more people coming forward with their experiences, as this inspires us to do the same, shedding more light on abductive phenomena, which is still a stigma even in the UFO and paranormal fields. Her other books include Chosen from Alien Hybrid Program to The Fate of the Planet. She resides in her hometown here is in Los Angeles. And welcome. We're very happy to have Yvonne with us. So, this might be a little too high for me.
No, for me. I didn't even know what it there you go.
I always had that problem when I had to stand on the box speaking to MUFON, seriously. Thank you so much for having me here, Dan, Paul, and Steve. I mean, everyone. I've known so many people for so many years. I've been doing this for 34 years now, unbelievable. But I don't have a script, and I had very little time to practice, Dan, I'm sorry. But I need someone to time me for my 25 minutes.
25. I'll give you a 5 and then a wrap.
Yes, that's what I do. I need the 5-minute warning because I'm going to share with you what Dan asked me to share with you when we had our session. So I want to make sure I get through that. So really quickly, I'm going to go through anatomy of an abduction. There's just so many details. I know I'm not going to make it through the whole thing today, but as Christina mentioned, Close Encounter Resource Organization, Earl attended our meetings a couple times, and it was so wonderful to have him, and he was always smiling. I remember his smiling face. And the last time I was in this theater, we were sitting about in the third row together. So, anyway, Earl, I know you're here with us. Okay. Abductions usually will begin in very early childhood and will follow the person throughout their entire lives. They will follow family members as well, so this is intergenerational. This drawing was done by my own son, my youngest son, Brent, when he was about 5 years old. He would tell us, I was married at the time, he would tell my husband and I that a tall spider would stand in the corner and talk to him at night. And in the middle of the night, he would come into our room. Sometimes I didn't even know, and he would make a little bed for himself on my side of the bed. And he would do this every night. He did not want to sleep in his room all night. And over the years now, I have interviewed hundreds of parents who are telling me the same thing. And I feel that as a therapist who's gone through this, now Bud Hopkins, my mentor, asked me years ago not to talk about my own experiences or that of my family, because he was afraid I was going to lose credibility, objectivity, so I didn't. I respected that for many years. But with many of my clients coming forward, and many of them are professional people, lawyers, people in the medical field, I thought maybe about 10 years ago or so that it was time. It was time for me to talk about my experience and my son's. And Brent has given me permission when we were in Roswell speaking to use his name. But that I do have children, I asked them to draw what they remember seeing. So this was his tall spider. Abductions will occur in, we call it a bedroom visitation. I think some people here, Camille said, people will see, say, a blue-white light coming through their windows. They will be rendered paralyzed, and many times there's 3 beings that come into the room. It's really funny that they choose to come in 3s many times. You saw my triangle there on my promo for Ciro, and I will show you, hopefully we have time, I will show you body marks as some similar to Camille's in a triangular form. Also, people have missing time. Now I know Bud coined this phrase in the 80s. This is one of my cases. John, driving up north on New Year's Eve to see his girlfriend, didn't remember pulling over. He remembered seeing something strange in the sky. He was late. This was before cell phones. So his girlfriend she was so angry with him, he didn't make it there till, after 12 o'clock. And his parents were frantic, and nobody knew where he was. So years later, he came to me. We did hypnosis. He's one of the subjects in my 2 books. And he had a classic missing time case. And since then, I've had hundreds. People will describe being escorted into a very curved hallway, and many times they will see, as they're walking along or being escorted, they will see other rooms with people in them or beings working around in the room. You'll see some of this artwork was done by Steve Neal. I've worked with him for 34 years. He worked many years in the film industry on very famous movies, but he offered to do drawings for me. So he acted as my police artist when people were describing what they experienced. Similarities. Now, once again, this is my son. We were on vacation, family vacation in Lake Tahoe, and he woke up and said that he remembered being surrounded with strange people. I asked him to draw, and I'm sorry I didn't bring my pointer, but you see those hallways coming out from the room that he was in. This is, again, he was probably maybe around 7 years old at this time. So he's on the table. He said he was trying to scream out, but he couldn't. And you noticed one of the beings had what looked like a very sharp instrument. So I was working with this with this client from he was in another state. He was in gosh, I drew a blank, but Tennessee, I believe. So here he is. He was in the military at the time. He walks in, he was escorted into a room, and you see the hallways that he drew, very rounded hallways. So here's a child, and when people draw, they're not discussing this with each other. It's my son, and here's an adult drawing the same thing. Then the person is escorted into a room. Many times there's some type of computer equipment. We don't have names for any of this, but always they describe a table in the room, many beings working around the room as if they're preparing for something. The examination will usually start in the toes and the feet, and they'll work all the way up the body. But, not always, but I had reports of this, so this is how I'm presenting it. Always, they're describing a very long, needle-like instrument. And as somebody had described, I don't know if it was Christina or Camille, but the head procedures happens all the time. Very, very common. As you can see, the long needle-like instrument, they're inserting this deep into the nasal cavity. There's usually a very round, tiny BB object at the end of it. Back in the early 90s and late 80s, early 90s when I was working with Bud, we didn't really realize at the time that these were implants that were being inserted and very close to the brain. Again, with the head procedures, instrument going into their forehead, at the top of their head, on the sides, and at the base of the skull. You can feel, quite often, you could feel something right underneath the skin at the base of the skull. So this is another procedure. This person I worked with, Santa Barbara, the medical field, and you notice the two taller beings at the head of the table with cape-like uniforms. And I think with Camille's drawing, she had it looked like they were wearing capes. I thought when I heard this, cape-like, Dracula-like, oh my God, these people are crazy. What am I doing? And I compared the notes with Dr. John Mack one time after a conference. He goes, oh my God, yeah, I have so many cases. And that's when I knew, oh my God, this is very strange, but I'm on the right track. And this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So you see my client's head is lifted. Again, with the head procedure. Nothing was touching it, but he told me during the session he just could not move it. And then you see the two smaller grays at the foot of the table that he described. They did something to his head during this procedure in this room, then they wheeled him out. So we've got the taller grays, often wearing the Dracula type capes or a very tight-fitting suit, one-piece suit. Often, almost everyone, they take the sperm from the men, and this is, Steve drew this from a compilation of my cases where sometimes they will wheel something in, they'll pull the instrument out, or they'll pull it from the top, from the ceiling. They take their sperm sample, and then they wheel the person out. This was a case of John missing time. It took 3 hypnosis sessions for him to actually look at this tank with fluid with this tiny little strange looking baby. He was told, he's in the middle of the two beings, he was escorted into the room, and he was told that he had to bond with this baby. It was his, and in order for this baby to survive, he has to bond with it. So periodically, he was taken up to the ship over the years and bonding with this child as this child got older. And there's what Steve Deal drew from hundreds of cases of people describing these tanks, say all in one room or down a very long corridor with these tiny little fetuses in there, and it's some type of a liquid, not water, but some type of a liquid. Baby presentations, this happens to men and women. Again, Steve Neal artwork presenting a baby, tiny little baby, to a woman. This is very, very difficult to get through in session. It's very emotional, and they want to take this baby back with them, to Earth, and they're told they can't, that it will not survive here. Now, a lot of things have changed since then, but I believe now, or I know now, that we do have hybrids walking among us at this time. I couldn't have said this 25 years ago. And here we are. This is from Jesse Long's case. He's the double abduction of the two brothers. He had several children that they presented him to and said, again, that he must bond with these babies, just like they told John. Now, Jesse's gay, and he, never had children. He always wanted children, but he's married now, living in Tennessee. And this is what disturbed him so much, because they showed him these children that were his, but he couldn't bring them back with him. So another very emotional, believe me, I've had to block myself that I don't fall apart, because how am I going to help them if I fall apart? Okay, here we go with the results of these examinations. These needle mark that resemble in a triangle shape. These are very common, and I present the triangle marks because they're harder, more difficult to explain away. I asked the doctor, how does somebody bruise in a triangular way? And, they have no explanation. Different person, okay, 3 needle marks in a triangular shape. This one, we measured, it was a 1/2 inch on each side, and this would come up on this person right before she was going to have an experience. Now, many people have told me they can feel when they're about to have an experience. They just know that they're going to be taken on that particular night. This is a layer of skin in a triangular shape. And what's very strange about these marks is people do not notice them right away. They don't cause discomfort or pain. This was on Christmas Day. She did not know. She had it on her hand. She was getting ready to go to a friend's house, and all of a sudden she saw it. And she had someone take a picture of it. And of course we did several hypnosis sessions with all of these. And coming to now, I think somebody was talking about the messages that have been coming to abductees, experiencers for years, since I have been in the field. They have told people they'll have them walk into or escorted into a room. They will have maybe large screens where they're showing all this devastation of the earth and what could happen or might be happening in the future. Bombs exploding, very often having these apocalyptic type dreams. How many here have had those? Yep. Okay. In my, well, I'll tell you in a minute. Okay, so this is artwork from Steve Neal, again, compilation of my hundreds and hundreds of cases. This is flooding, and this could be any large city, anywhere, and showing floods. So people are dreaming about bombs exploding, cities just on fire, and flooding in the large cities, tsunamis. This is another huge one. How many have had dreams about tsunamis? Yeah, I know it's very disturbing. I know I've had similar dreams to other experiencers about this, which disturbs me to this day. So in my book, Chosen, it's going into the second edition, but at the second half of the book, I talk about the urgency of people thinking, I know I'm supposed to do something, but I don't know what it is. Something is going to happen soon, but I don't know when. They never tell me a date. You know, was it like the 2020 or 2012, and it was this big hoo-ha about the end of the world, the Mayan calendar, and nothing happened. And this is what I really sat up and paid attention, because they're not giving me a date, but they're all feeling the same way. And most of these people coming into my office or doing Zoom sessions with, they don't know each other. Okay, so descriptions of the beings, and many of you, I know I'm speaking to a very sophisticated audience, but we're talking about these little beings who usually come in, take the person out of their normal environment, and bringing them up to the ship. So the little grays, but some of them are taller, as I mentioned before, wearing capes or tight-fitting uniforms. This one is, again, the caped alien. When I first heard this, I thought, oh my God, this sounds ridiculous, but not so much now. So we did a drawing of this one as well. And then we have the reptilian type. Now, interesting, in my cases and the beings that I come across, the reptilians aren't there. They're not as prominent as the others. Now, can you imagine waking up, in the middle of the night and seeing this staring at you in your bedroom? I don't think I'd want that experience. I haven't had that experience. But they're there, but I know other cases, people have come across them very often. Then we have the human-looking ones. Very tall, very perfect-looking, manicured, their hair. They look at Travis Walton. That was the first time I heard of him. He was describing these very human-looking beings with a blue uniform. So this is my case from Arkansas. That's Arkansas he was from. He drew this, and he said it was difficult for him to draw because they were so perfect-looking. This is a different person. He drew the blue uniform, very tall, very manicured, and these two people have still not ever met, but many, many descriptions of this type of uniform and human-looking beings. That's what I'm saying, and there could be one in this room now.
Paul.
Or walking around, and maybe they'll be at Contact in the Desert. As long as they pay, I know. And then here we are with the praying mantis. This one is in every experience that I have worked with, the experiencers, abductees. They describe the tall praying mantis. Some of them describe him as he he looks like an ant, or he looks like a grasshopper. But this one, praying mantis usually seems to be the one in charge. Many times he's standing back while the grays, the taller grays and the shorter ones are working on the person, and he's giving them direction, and it's all, of course, telepathic. Now, one of my clients sent this to me. Look at the face. I mean, this is what people describe all the time. The the eyes and the triangular shape of the head. And I saw one in our yard. My sister said, "You want to come here? Your friend's over here." So I looked at it and I started talking to it, and it went like oh my God. It's like they understand what you're talking about. They're amazing. So these are the ones that I usually have described to me during the sessions. This one, John Long drew, that was the double abduction of brothers. And he called it, as a 5-year-old child, he called it his tall friend that would escort him into the ship. And his tall friend, he would always say, taught him how to fly. And when I interviewed his mother, he said, "Oh yeah, Johnny always told me he knows how to fly." He said he would get this feeling in his stomach, and then he could fly. So this is coming from a child, but it's a very common description. And this is the book. This is my first chosen that I wrote. First edition. It's going into a second one, which will probably be ready around summertime. I'm also doing a second edition of Coronado, about the mass abduction in 1994 on Coronado Island in San Diego. And that's going to be coming out, well, hopefully I'll have it for Contact in the Desert. But I wanted to ask, how many here have had those feelings about, I'm supposed to be doing something, but I don't know what it is? Raise your hands. Oh, quite a few people. Mm-hmm. Or something is going to happen soon. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And lately, probably the last couple of years, they've been telling me, the abductees experience have been telling me that it's ratcheting up. It's ratcheting up. It's getting closer. I think we're in it now. I think there's so much happening now. I've been getting messages from beings after 34 years. This has never happened. I presented it last year at Contact in the Desert. I figured, okay, people think I've lost it, but I'm supposed to tell people, and I'm going to be talking about the messages again. I just got the 5-minute warning. Thank you, Dan. Now, when Dan and I, when we were sitting in my office, I shared with him that, I explained to people that don't be surprised after you've had these sessions that you have flashbacks. You could be doing dishes. I was, believe it or not, in my bathroom, on my hands and knees, scrubbing the bathroom floor. Something mundane. My kids were in school. I was still married. My husband was at work. And I had the bathroom. It was a master bathroom. And I'm scrubbing the floor, and all of a sudden I kind of sat up, and I was in this large, round, white room. And I saw tables in this room, probably 100 tables, with beings working around. And I felt, I didn't see her, it was a female, I felt her right here. I felt that she was very tall, didn't have hair, and she was wearing a white gown with long sleeves. And telepathically, she told me, she went like this: "You're going to be helping all these people." And then I was back in my bathroom. So this happened in the early 90s when I just started my practice. And I've never forgotten it. I shared it with Dan. He's, "Oh, you have to tell everybody about this." So if you have flashbacks like this, don't be alarmed. It's very common. Just document everything. Write everything down. Dreams, recurring dreams, flashbacks, high strangeness. I know we all experience high strangeness. So just write everything down, and just remember there is help. I'm going to be teaching in June. I'm going to be teaching therapists a workshop of how to do this work. Everything's on my website. So thank you, Dan, Paul, Steve, and everybody. Sorry I had to rush through this, but at least I wanted to share what I have experienced for the last 34 years. Thank you so much. And now I'm going to be introducing our next speaker. Please welcome Renee Lynn Reeser Zelnick, a high strangeness attractor, experiencer, and Hollywood storyboard and concept artist. Renee has worked with the entertainment industry for over 3 decades. She's worked creatively on various paranormal shows and storyboarded the Jack Parsons biopic series Strange Angel, and while at EA Games co-created on numerous titles, including Command and Conquer, as well as top secret alien themed project led by Steven Spielberg. She's also the founder and chief frequency officer of SonicSoundYoga.com, a sound healing practice exploring the intersection of frequency, consciousness, and cosmic communication. Each year at Contact in the Desert, Renee shares her gifts as a sound healer and speaker concierge, guiding transformative experiences and immersive sound baths. Okay, so here we go. Please welcome Renee.
Shamanatrix.
That's funny. Little crossover. Thank you. Maybe we'll do a little tone. No pressure. Fingers crossed, y'all. Oh, now's the part where I get really nervous. Hi guys, hi friends. I'm so glad to see you guys coming out today on a beautiful gray day, and that sentence has more meaning than it had for me before it was this morning, for sure.
Can you speak to the mic?
Oh, do I have to go up now?
Yeah.
Sorry. I need a roadie, right? Is that better?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to thank you, Yvonne, and I want to thank all of the amazing ladies who preceded me here today.
what engaging stories, and I gotta say, real tough acts to follow. Real tough acts to follow. I was like Academy Awards, Fellini, it's a lot. But I kind of feel in the interest of time, we gotta kind of keep rolling here. So I wanna talk to you about vibrations. I wanna talk to you about UFOs. I wanna talk about the frequency of disclosure. What if my slides worked? What if, we'll try this again. Oh, it's doing what happened to you guys, I think. Yeah, it's taking me right out. Well, you know what? That's all right. That's all right. We can go up here. It's not doing what it's supposed to do. That is interesting, isn't it? That when we go into full screen, it takes you right back out when you hit play. Somebody's playing. Let's see.
Arrow key?
Earl. You know, I'm going to try a different key and see if it works this way.
Or space. Yeah, space bar.
Yeah.
Bar, arrow key.
It's taking me right back, and I've practiced this a million times. That's the funny thing. Well,
I
we can
think
go
that
here.
that thing now on the table there is causing a problem.
I think that's it. I think that's it. I think
Take
that's
something
it.
that's personal.
You know what? If it does it again, we'll just go through the slides this way, and you guys don't mind looking at the
No,
thumbnails,
no.
do you?
Sneak peek.
Do it
It's a
that
sneak
way.
peek, right?
Click far to
Well,
the college.
I wanted to ask this question. First of all, how do my slides work? I wanted to ask a question. If the key to UAP propulsion and interdimensional travel and even disclosure lied in frequency and sound,
Of course.
right? Could certain tones open contact with non-human intelligences? Right? It's an interesting question.
That tracks.
Now, you see, years ago, and I mean years ago, I became interested in, as most young ladies from Amish country do, I became interested in UFOs. I became interested in psi phenomenon. I became interested in cryptids. I became interested in the mysteries of the unexplained. Having sleepless nights and sneaking my Snoopy-shaped AM radio into my bedroom, I would listen to Coast to Coast AM. Art Bell, right? Art Bell fans in the room, right? Our own HDA member, Tommy D. I know he's touring around with George right now, going around the country, sharing with folks, but I became fascinated with the unexplained. I remember getting on my school bus once in junior high and sitting on the seat where I'm supposed to be sitting was an Edgar Cayce book. No one knew who, Amish country, Edgar Cayce, here's this book, right? So I began to get interested in the sleeping prophet. I was always very woo-woo as a young kid, right? But yeah, listening to Coast, it explore, you know, the explorations going on in there just like made me, you know, entertain different ideas, and boy, did I gear into the UFOs, right? And as I said, you know, Amish country becoming fascinating, as many children do, in things like field resonance propulsion. I was like, when I was about 13, NASA starts talking about this. My husband and I will constantly argue about, well, what about space travel? How are we going to carry the fuel, right? But this idea of field resonance propulsion theory, I mean, it's every little girl's dream, right? Other girls are playing, you know, Barbie play dates, and I'm trying to dive deep into the TV guide so I can find the next episode of In Search of, right? Leonard Nimoy, guys. Oh gosh, yeah. But you know, I wanted to find out about the crystal skulls. I wanted to find out about the cryptids. All right, it is a disclosure talk. Full disclosure, I did have Barbies, but they did weird things with my brother's Chips dolls, and that's a whole other thing. That's a whole other thing. But I did end up later working for Mattel, so there was sort of like a resolution there for my psyche. But yeah, what were we talking about? Oh yeah. Field resonance propulsion, right? This idea that electromagnetic waves could create a type of reactionless propulsion system, right? So we didn't have to hear about, you know, this kind of combustive kind of thing that we're used to having. My husband hates that we're moving away from combustion into electronics, I know. And it doesn't rely on expelling mass to generate thrust. No jokes about the Barbies guys over here. But this idea of travel without limitation, of rocket engines and the way that we've been taught about combustion, could it be relying on sound? Could it be waves? So imagine if a spaceship could tune in to a specific frequency, like tuning into a radio station, like I would tune into Coast to Coast AM. By generating electromagnetic signals that at a certain frequency, a spaceship could like ripple through and push itself forward, allowing instantaneous travel to distant locations. Interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. But then, like a little spark with all of my brain going, I had a few realizations that this might be applicable to what we know now as USOs. I discovered, in the 90s, when I was like looking around at all the stuff that the Navy was working on, hypersonic underwater aircraft, suggesting that electromagnetic fields could create a quantum vacuum of sorts around a craft, reducing or eliminating aerodynamic drag or hydro drag. That was fascinating to me. So, speaking of epiphanies, I had another one. All right? Again, that flash, that spark that came to me when all the brain cells were working at once. I know it's hard for the blondes in the room, I know. But I came to a conclusion. I realized that I am not a professional theoretical scientist. Well, here's the interesting thing. I've studied with a few good ones. I was blessed in my program in master's study of consciousness studies as well as transpersonal psychology to work with people like Dr. Fred Allen Wolfe, Dr. Amit Goswami. Don Miguel Ruiz actually taught a shamanism class in my program, which was amazing. And my program dean, you may have heard of, a Dr. Jeffrey Mishlove, who is renowned for remote viewing and has a great little show you also may have heard of called what? Thinking Aloud. Thinking Aloud. So yeah, she's disappointed that I'm not a theoretical scientist. That's the face of disappointment. My mom made that too. But it's interesting too to bring up Castaneda. In my undergrad, I had a professor that was with him at UCLA in anthropology. So even though it sounds like I'm name dropping a lot, I believe in lineage. And in a group like this, we all have stories, right? And we all have a way of connecting with one another. So that always excites me. So if I'm not a theoretical scientist, who am I? Well, the name I feel sort of is our first spell cast upon us, right? It has resonance, it has frequency. And the name Renee means to be reborn, right? A little French word there. And I wear a lot of hats. Lots of them. You should see my wall. You should see the collection at home. But yeah, I had a 30-year career. Had being a keyword thanks to AI. Good for some of us, very bad for others in the room. Very bad for others in the room. But I was blessed to work on a lot of paranormal shows. I was blessed to connect with a lot of amazing creators. But I've always kind of felt, while one foot's in that world, the other foot's in the woo-woo world. The other foot's in the world of Edgar Casey's book appearing on my bus seat. The other foot's in the world of using sound and frequency to have elevated psychic connection with other humans and non-humans. So I'm really thrilled now to see the intersection in our group's world with the psychedelic people and the plant shaman people, right? So we're sort of having a bit of a renaissance and a family reunion, if you will, of all of us getting together, right? So, and then Dan's been very kind with starting the new Hollywood Disclosure Alliance YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe. And yeah, so I started the Higher Frequency Network on there, and I want to talk more about that connection that we all have with, plant medicines and our guides on there. In fact, I shared with Paul some time ago that I connected a long time back in the Yucatan with folks like Terrence McKenna, Paul Stamets, the world famous mycologist, and Sasha Alexander Shulgin, who was paid by the US government to create over 250 psychoactive chemicals, including MDMA. And I got involved at Harbor UCLA as a test subject for MDMA for use with end-stage cancer patients as well as AIDS patients. So yes, the government has paid me to get really high. There's our little disclosure alliance YouTube plug there. And you can also find me down at Contact in the Desert. Who all's going to Contact this year? Who's making Contact? Woo! So, Miss Judy is my team leader, and I served as a concierge, helping folks, different speakers, get to their rooms, get to their lectures on time, etc. But I also serve doing sound baths, and we'll have a little bit of a demonstration later. Because after a long day of listening to all of us drone on, you want to turn on and listen to those drone a bit and get into a different psychological state. We'll put it that way. But time to get a little personal, and speaking of psychological states. On October 10th, 2008, I received a phone call that no wife ever wants to get. It was the hospital letting me know that my husband, Mike, had been in a serious and almost fatal motorcycle accident. The crazy guy rode here today in the rain. But he had been thrown 43 feet from his bike. I shouldn't say his bike. He was riding my bike, by the way. Still bitter. Still bitter I lost my bike, but I didn't lose my husband. And his body was shattered with multiple broken bones and torn muscles, severed nerves, and the left arm was completely, the bones were shattered and the nerves were severed. So Mike and I are both musicians, we're both creators, we're both artists, lifelong bikers. We knew the risk, but nothing really prepares you for seeing your partner in a hospital bed all shattered and broken. But as someone who, as I said, walks with your feet in both worlds, as a yoga instructor, meditation instructor, that's more on the resume as well, yeah, I know. I had been determined from the moment that I sat down with him that he was going to make it, and he was going to get better, and he was going to heal. So that's when sound sort of came into the picture, almost immediately. And not just any sound. Christopher Bowles sound healing, right? So years ago, I discovered something a bit extraordinary. Oh, here's us, Les Gray, at the time of the accident. You can see us down there at the bottom. Les Gray. But knowing my healing journey and whatnot, I wanted to bring about an experience for him that I had many years ago that I knew was healing for me. And I know many of you guys know this building, right?
Integratron.
The Integratron, right? This is where my relationship with Christopher Bowles began. Many, 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 many years ago. So yeah, I had discovered something out near Joshua Tree called the Integratron. For people who haven't seen this building or seen an image that looks like this before, there was a gentleman out there by the name of George Van Tassel who had been getting downloads and information as a contactee and been given plans to build this building. This resonant wooden dome was designed using sacred geometry, Tesla type tech, not the cars, Nikola. We'll talk about the right Tesla here. And principles from ancient Egypt. Van Tassel believed that this building and the technology that he was putting together there could rejuvenate the body, it could extend life, and even manipulate. So Google a little bit if you're not familiar. I think you'll be intrigued. The first time I was in a sound bath here in this acoustically perfect sound chamber, a lot of amazing things happened to me. It was like being on a psychedelic trip without chemistry. I couldn't control my eyes, so I was having like this like rapid eye movement while I was awake. I was like, REM happens when we're awake. Okay, is that memory here? What's going on, right? But I was having the REM. I was having out-of-body experiences. I was having a sense of synesthesia when I heard these bowls in this room, where the sound would actually take on other sensory aspects, like sound became color, sound became texture. This was all very new to me, right? I was like, wow, this place is magical. As a matter of fact, I remember being at my first sound bath and being able to look up at that circular hole you see at the top there, that window, and I saw the faces of what I believe to be the ascended masters. It's like, here's the face of Jesus morphing into Archangel Michael. Here's Archangel Uriel. Here's Saint Germain with the violet flame. And then the face became an alien. Very interesting to me, very interesting. So I decided when Mike was in recovery that I was determined to get him down here. So after he was able to walk again, but he had his arm still in the sling and had no mobility in this hand that I told you where the bones were shattered, where the nerves were severed. We got him up the crazy stairs. If you've been to the Integratron, you know it's like a vertical leap, a leap of faith. We got him up the stairs and we got him laying down. Back then you could get private sessions at the Integratron for like $300. It's great. It's a bit more expensive now. Hello economy, hello inflation. But if you get the opportunity, it's well worth it. And here's why. As they start to play the bowls, you know, I'm getting into this crazy state. My man's next to me, a few other friends are with us. But when she plays the F bowl, the F sharp bowl actually, which resonates at 360 hertz, something magical happened. That hand that had no movement, the fingers started dancing. Wow. The fingers started moving, right? So he taps me and I look over and I just start crying. Because to me, this is a miracle of frequency, a miracle of sound, right? So yeah, it got my attention. It really got my attention. And the fact that it was the 360 hertz bowl, I thought was kind of interesting because in our yoga practices and meditation, when we think about the heart chakra and the F sharp, that green resonance, I was like, wow, it's interesting that this bowl that is, you know, considered to be resonant with the heart frequency, resonant with love, was what was curing him, or for lack of better words, activating a change. You know, cure is a strong word. We had a little bit of physical therapy to go through, but as you know, physical therapy, they only give you so many sessions. So I decided to get my own set of bowls, and I went deeper. I realized, you know, there's only like 5 sessions we can have with the physical therapist, but these bowls that made a change in him, this will become the therapy. So I moved from being a sound participant to a sound practitioner. I became a sound healer. I became a little bit more embracive of my woo-woo self. And when I wasn't drawing storyboards, I was using gongs, tuning forks, and crystal bowls to help people get into a higher state. And what do I mean by that? Along with the sound healing, I would do guided meditation, and I would work with folks to help them to manage pain, or to deal with trauma, or even to recover after accidents or pregnancies. But yeah, that F bowl had a lot of magic in it that day. So I began to study, well gosh, what the heck is so special about this Integratron, right? So a lot of people in the room do know the stories about George Van Tassel, the architect, the builder of the Integratron, and he was the originator of the UFO convention, guys. I mean, he would have people gathering down there out by Giant Rock, and there would be people coming from all over the U.S.
I was there.
You were there?
Yep.
You went to one?
Yep.
Oh, right on. Do you have a she-shirt?
No. I went with my brother and my mother.
Oh my gosh, you're legend. We have to talk. That is so cool.
What year?
You're out there.
What year was it?
Yeah.
50s, 60s?
60s, I think.
60s. Wow.
Wow. Oh, that's extraordinary. Yeah. I mean, when I look at those pictures from Life magazine, I brought some with me when they covered the events out there. I was just like, oh my gosh, to have been there, my goodness. But yeah, he was also a friend of a guy named Frank Kreitzer, who went to live under the rock. Kreitzer and Van Tassel had a great friendship. Apparently a gentleman named Frank Kreitzer blew with some dynamite a living space under this rock. Now this rock is like, what, 6 stories tall. It's considered to be one of the most large builders on the planet, you know. It's, the whole area is considered very sacred too by the native tribes that are down there. Yeah, but Mr. Frank Kreitzer, who was a friend of Mr. Van Tassel, lived under the rock. This is a picture of his living room, whatnot. But yeah, Frank and George, they are the, you know, the people that started the airstrip out by Joshua Tree. So yeah, a lot of history between those guys. Very interesting. Lots of weird woo-woo people. But yeah, I wonder if you're in some of these photos. Let's see here. I'm digging the fact that somebody's already getting into like the merch vibe. T-shirts for sale here, right? Yeah, but I was really fascinated to know that Mr. Van Tassel brought all these people out there. But he began to have transmissions and visitations from a UFO, which he said was from Venus. And the gentleman from Venus that he would be talking to was named Solganda. And yeah, a lot of people artistically have a different view of what Venusians look like, these people from Venus. I'm personally digging the one here. That's great.
Yeah, me too.
But, yeah, Venusians, the Venusians. Very interesting. But he thought of the Integratron as a time machine, you know, both figuratively and literally. He thought of it as a place where people would come to get rejuvenated, that they would come to get retuned. And that's exactly what I experienced there. But yeah, over a period of time, you know, Kreitzer moves out there, lives under the rock. He died in some crazy raid where everyone thought because he was so weird and woo-woo that he must be a Nazi spy. So yeah, unfortunate experience there. He's no longer with us. Well, no, there's George. But then George ended up moving down there after Frank's death, and he had his first contact experience right out there, where Solganda gave him the information about building there. Now, years later, of course, the Carl sisters took it over. If you've been out there, you know Nancy and Joanne Carl. They were the ones that gave the sound bath to my lovely husband. But yeah, the human body is this electromagnetic instrument, one that can be retuned. And what's really interesting too is the location of the Integratron. Supposedly 3 underground rivers converge there, right? This is a place where 3 mystical ley lines or energy lines connect, not unlike the ones we see at the Pyramid of Giza, Stonehenge, etc. So yeah, it's a pretty magical location. What do we say out here? Location, location, location. Any location scouts in the room? AI's not taking your job. I should be a location scout. Okay. But what this did for me was it just really clued me into how vibration does change perception, how sound does connect us to not only ourselves and our bodies, but to non-human intelligence, especially when we use binaural beats. So people oftentimes hear about binaural beats, they play them on YouTube, they put your headphones on, but what's interesting when we use crystal bowls with binaural beats is they do something a little bit different than the ones that you hear on YouTube. And if you'll indulge me for a second, when you play 2 bowls that are tuned very closely to one another, but are slightly off, like if there's any pianists in the room today, or pianists, if you're playing like 2 notes right next to on the keyboard, they've got a dissonant kind of sound. Well, when we use that with crystal bowls, it almost sounds like we want to contact the mothership. It's hard to hear up here because the acoustics are all wonky, right? But yeah, but when you get into those binaural beats, something magical happens when you're lying down with intention with your eyes shut. You move through different brainwave states, right? We're sitting here in sort of this like beta attention, perception, awareness beta state. But when we're using the bowls and using meditation, we end up going into a more focused alpha state, and then we end up in a beautiful place in the theta state. So yeah, interesting stuff that happens at the Integratron. I encourage you to go for a sound bath. So yeah, we're talking about different frequencies. There are frequencies that are considered optimal that groups like SETI use. There was Mr. Frank Drake, who sort of figured out that 1420.4 megahertz was a frequency that is optimal for reaching out and having communication in space, right? To reach extraterrestrial intelligence. And, like I said, using intention, using crystal bowls, using these instruments, getting us into these deeper states of resonance, that's how we can connect. I found that when I was having sound baths with local people outdoors, if I set the right intention and binaural beats were played, it seemed like sure enough that I could open my eyes and look into the sky, and suddenly, oh, what's that light? Is that a star? No. Oh, that's moving, and oh, what's that? So suddenly, by using these binaural beats, it just seemed like they would appear and they would come. The other thing that's interesting is I just had a recent trip back to the Integratron, and I got to tell you guys, when I stepped out of the car with the folks that I went with, they felt it too. You feel that immediate buzz in your legs. You feel the vibration of the space. It's like as if you're feeling the rush of those rivers underground beneath you, and it's just like, I'm just such a fan. Anyway. But it's, as I said, very sacred to the Kauai Indians, etc. But now, another thing that happens in the realm of communication is folks like Dr. Stephen Greer have popped up, and whether you're a fan or not, that's fine. He has kind of packaged this idea too, that using certain intentions and using certain frequencies brings about the close encounter of the fifth kind phenomenon. Now, has anyone here been on a CE5 journey? Yeah, see? CE5's happening, right? Close encounters of the fifth kind, right? So, close encounters of the fifth kind, this is about human-initiated contact with non-human intelligence. And of course, we get this from who? Mr. J. Allen Hynek's Close Encounters Scale. So, for folks who are new to it, CE1 is the sighting of an unidentified flying object, or UAP. The second is when there are physical effects left, like, you know, when you see like the burnt out like land, etc., or broken trees, things of that nature. Number 3 is when we observe or interact with the occupants. Number 4 is the abduction or involuntary contact experiences. And then number 5 is the voluntary conscious. That's like we're inviting, right? We're like, yeah, I'm willing to be connected with you. So what was really strange in our lives after the healing had occurred, whatnot, with my husband, in the middle of the afternoon, we had a backyard UFO UAP experience. Completely like normal day. We're outside pulling weeds, we're doing yard work, begrudgingly. And in between our two houses comes this really weird object. And it's like, okay, I finally get a good UFO and I'm not even getting a disc. I'm not getting a flying saucer. What am I getting? So coming in between my house and my neighbor's house, I did a little digital recreation here because during the moment, could either of us be bothered to go pick our phones or cameras up? No, we're so mesmerized. So this object comes flying in between our two houses, silently, slowly, right? Looking a bit like a window of sorts. I'd say it's probably maybe 24 by 48 and about yay thick. Huh, interesting. So I'm turning around, like noticing this. My husband's still, you know, working on the garden or taking care of whatever he's doing, weeding stuff. And then notices that I'm kind of quiet. He gets up, turns around, and I'm like, are you seeing what I'm seeing? And he's like, God, I hope not. What is this? So this object flies in, silently stops. Of course, when we describe this to people, they're like, oh, this is just light. This is light coming through. No, this was an object. We know how light would actually put itself onto the leaves. No, this object's coming through quietly. And it seems as if when we're noticing it, it's noticing us. So we're having a staring contest with a strangely shaped geometric UAP. And then it just kind of darts between those two trees over there on the left of the frame, backs out over my neighbor's yard, and disappears behind our pomegranate tree. Interesting. So I was like, well, I'm going to take this image down to Contact in the Desert, talk to the folks at MUFON, talk to the, researchers, the folks that, I respect in the field. I remember going up to Ben Hansen. I don't know if you've seen his show UFO Witness. I'm a big fan of that one. And he mentioned that to him it felt like a lot of the Skywalker Ranch activity that he had checked out when he was doing a lot of research. I spoke with Mark, who he's co-hosted with, Alien Invasion, Hudson Valley. Being from the East Coast, I've had a lot of woo-woo things happening too when I go upstate New York, mid-state New York. He sent me to Sandy Clevin. Sandy sent me to Katie Page. And Katie Page sent me back to Earl. So it was interesting, sharing with these people. But nobody in their group that they had known had really seen anything like this. Upon further investigation, though, I did find out that there were several people in the Conejo Valley, Newberry Park area, Thousand Oaks area, etc., that had seen something that they describe as a white sheet. Anyway, I wanted to just let you know the reason that this was interesting, that 360. The 360 degrees, that was the F-sharp goal that helped my husband heal. The 360 degrees, well, that's what a parallelogram is, and that was a 30-degree parallelogram. I'm like, it kept telling me 30 degrees, 30 degrees, 30 degrees. So I started working with tuning forks that were 30 hertz and 60 hertz. I started thinking to myself, what does this window want me to know, right? And I was like, a window's something you see through. So as I began to see through the problem, it began giving me information that helped me be a better healer and connect more with non-human intelligence. And I know I have to wrap up. I could talk about this stuff forever. But I asked earlier today if, these are places you can find me. That's not important today. What's more important, I wanted to take a few moments with you guys collectively, if I could, and strike a few tones and ask ourselves to close our eyes and just have a little connection. Yeah, I hope together pretty good. Sure. You can find me. Good night, you guys. Thanks for coming. Bye. And thanks for thanks for putting up with me, because I completely couldn't remember to read my script, because you have such beautiful faces. Yeah, but I'd like to introduce today our final speaker, Mr. Steve Bassett. Steve is the executive director and co-founder of the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. You may have heard that rumor. As well as the founder of the Washington, D.C.-based Paradigm Research Group. He became the first ever UFO disclosure advocate in Washington. Woo! In 1996. 1996. And over the past 29 years, he's remained one of the most prominent voices in the world, helping to propel the disclosure movement forward. He's done hundreds of interviews around the world on the topic of disclosure, and will be featured as a speaker at Contact in the Desert. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Steve Bassett. I pulled it together for you, Dave.
That's got the right thing. This will go fast.
It's okay.
Is that a standard? Yes. Right there.
Oh, I almost made it.
Oh, no, that's an HDMI.
Uh-huh.
So either connect or...
Here you are.
Good.
Yes.
Okay, first of all, I'm not really kind of a speaker, I'm kind of a closer in this case. In fact, I'm going to be very brief. One of the reasons for that is today was about the ladies of the HDA. And last I checked, that's not. So, I want to do just a couple of things. First of all, I want to show you this very quickly. As we move forward and we're getting very close to the prize, you want to be able to do as much as you can, because it's really getting intense. PRG has limited resources, so it needs to look for things it can do that do not require much resource. And one of the things I've chosen, and I've been adamant now for some time, is something very fundamental. This has been an effort to get the government to do something it doesn't want to do, against government policy, which probably is no longer appropriate at all. It has been very difficult. If you were a civil rights movement, nobody questioned the fact that there was racism or segregation. Otherwise, why would you be doing it? But in this case, we're advocating about something the government said doesn't exist at all, which is ridiculous, but makes it a very difficult path to take. Very difficult. And a lot of people have taken that path. 75 years. 70 since Roswell. Let's go there. 78 years. They've paid out of their own pocket. They've put up with a great deal. They put up with stigma. They put up with ridicule. They've lost relationships. They paid a heavy price. They didn't make much money. But now we're about to break out. We're about to get disclosure, which I'll mention very briefly. We're almost there. It's practically a done deal. And guess what? Very important people, PhDs, lots of money, background in the military, background in the intelligence services, so forth, are getting in. Of course they are. We wanted that. We wanted them to get involved. They're forming organizations and so forth. And does it shock you that kind of the way this works, and it's been that way forever when you talk about activism, is that now that they're here, we need to go, right? We need to step aside, let them carry the ball forward. And the reason is fundamental to activism. If you are a political activist working on a high-end issue, and you're wrong, in other words, the thing you're really trying to get the government to do is the wrong thing to do, people don't like you. And if you're right, they really don't like you. And in this issue, you were crazy. Not just wrong, you were crazy. We're all crazy. And so as this thing finally becomes real, there are people that make the human mistake of thinking, well, you were right, but you were saying those things back when it was crazy to say those things. So even though you're right, we kind of still think you're kind of crazy. And so we would like to move on without you. And I am going to do everything I can to make damn sure that doesn't happen. And one of the ways we have to recognize each other, we have to award each other. That's why we have the conferences, we network. That's why we give out awards at conferences. I had 6 X conferences, I gave out 36 awards. Wish I could do another one. I will. Some fun's turning up. But one of the ways that I have done this is 20 years ago, I started a project on my website called In Memoriam. And I didn't know if some of you have not seen it, but I wanted to get a look at it today. And guess who I added just today?
Oh.
Right? And so In Memoriam is on my website. It's under projects. Up here it's under projects. My mouse doesn't want to work now. Oh, there it is. Hello, mouse. It's under projects, ongoing, and In Memoriam, right? And so what I've done here is I have essentially selected people that I felt that had made contributions or were notable. It just couldn't be anybody like my friends, you know, high school friends. No. People that you would recognize as contributors to this field. And I started putting up their photo, their dates, and also there's a link there to information about them that I selected. And this all goes all the way back to 47. And there's a lot of people in this list. A lot of people in this In Memoriam. And so feel free to drop in and visit some of the people that we have lost as we pursue the greatest secret of all time, the greatest truth of all time, and one of the most significant government policies of all time in terms of its impact on our world, on ourselves, on everything, actually. This is a really big deal we're involved in. I think it's the most important activist movement in all of history, but, you know, I guess I'm kind of partial. So there you have it. Now, if there is somebody that, after you review this and you go here, that you feel really needs to be on this list, well, you get in touch with me. We'll certainly see what we can do about that. All right? So that's something I want to bring up. Take this down. I also want to take a moment to congratulate the speakers. Look, each one of these women is brilliant and articulate, and I think they could do 4 hours on their experience and work without notes and not even. So the fact that they would come down and squeeze in, you know, here's what I got in about 20 minutes. Let me tell you, that's not easy to do. And I think probably down the line we should have some situations where we bring in a single speaker and let them talk for 4 hours and really give them an opportunity. And as we get more funds for the HDA, we will be able to do things like that. In that regard, let me mention something else. If you are here and you're thinking maybe I should be a member of the HDA, you like what you're seeing and so forth, get in touch with Daniel or me. Our contacts are on the HDA website, and say, I think I'm in the HDA, we'll talk about it. As a founding member, either a Hollywood founding member or a UAP founding member, as we've divided it. And if you got a foot in both camps, well, we'll work it out. It can't be both, all right? The other thing I want to mention is that we just started doing this thanks to our friend Ron James, friend and member and board member Ron James, who is the merchandise king in some respects of this issue. He's done a lot of stuff here, you wouldn't believe. We are selling merchandise because it seemed appropriate for a Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, right, this town. That's up on the website. If you want to partake in that, that helps us, but more importantly, it promotes the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. We are getting close to taking off. It's been a challenging year and a half, but I think at any moment lightning could strike, and before you know it, we're the hot ticket in town. Okay?
Hey, Steve.
And yes, sir?
Hey, there's some cups and mouse pads that I brought.
I understand there's a couple out there.
The reason I bring it up is because I want to take those and donate them in Earl's name to HDA, so I'm giving them for free.
Thank you.
Anybody that picks them up, that's what
We'll give them to the speakers.
All right, so that 90% cut we have to give, you don't have to do that anymore. No, I appreciate it. No, Ron is he's a genius.
Steve, we'll give them to the 5 lady speakers.
We'll give them to the 5 lady speakers. Okay, now very quickly, here I want to wrap up with this. In 1947, when Roswell took place, there were 11 women in the Congress of the United States, 1 senator and 10 congresswomen. By 32 years later, 1979, 1981, the 96th Congress, there were 16. All right? Progress. Since then, the number has never gone down. It has continued to go up, and as of now, it is at 151 women in Congress, the highest ever. I can go long on this, I'm not going to do it, but the point that I'm making is this. One of the most important movements of the 20th century, certainly the second half of the 20th century, though it early starts in the 20th century, I think it may be number one in the long run. It has many names, I choose this name. The empowerment of women. The women's empowerment movement. And at the core of this is something that I think is debatable, but I feel confident when I say this. I think the worldview of women in the collective, not on an individual basis, is not the same as men. It's different. And it looks at things in a different way. And the way women in the collective look at things are the way we absolutely must start looking at things, because the way men have looked at things has given certain outcomes and had certain accomplishments, but no longer works in the modern world of 8 billion people, 200 countries, and trillions of dollars of massive weaponry. We've taken that gig as far as we can go. And so the women worldview has got to start blending in like those two tones over there to create another tone that will allow us to actually fix things before it's too late. And so it's also worth noting that if you look at the history of this issue, it was male dominated from the beginning, massively male dominated, right? In terms of who was members of the NICAP board, by the way, it was blanked it again. Kehoe. Donald Kehoe was the one that found NICAP. And he's the one they had to destroy to get rid of it. Male dominated, remained that way. As you went forward with conferences and so forth, women would be there and they would turn up, and there were people who were doing researchers. One of the very first important women was Carol Lorenzen. And if I get a chance, whether it's a Contact of the Desert or a conference that I put on, I'm going to give out the Carol Lorenzen Award for women in ufology that year, whoever's going to get that award, and other stuff like that. But it was primarily dominated by men. It was difficult. We would hold conferences, and we were just looking at it and going, oh my God, there's like 23 guys there, and it's like, what are you going to do? There's reasons for that. Doesn't matter. But what we didn't know during that 75 years, maybe there weren't a lot of women researchers or women documentaries on this issue. Guess what? Women were big time into this issue. We didn't really start to get that until the 1980s. And what do I mean? What I mean is this. The evidence is fairly clear that women make up a majority of the contactees. It may be 50-50. I don't think it is. I think it's more like 70-30. They have been at the center of this for 78 years as the majority of the contactees. Unable to talk about it. Unable to come out of the closet. Right? And there, all of that time. Fascinating, isn't it? Wow, talk about being a participant. Talk about being important. And now, because of all the other things that have happened, including these great and powerful men and so forth that have come forward, God bless them, and all the politics and everything else and the work of the activists, things are getting good. The women are now able to come out in many ways, not the least of which is they no longer feel the stigma, and they are talking about their contact experiences, and what they're reporting is astronomically important. We know 2 or 3 things we know a lot about ETs. We know a great deal about what they do in contact events from the majority of the women that come forward. And the way they're involved is quite extraordinary, because once you get into hybrids, boy, you're in a whole nother universe there, and that's got some pretty significant aspects to it. And so their influence is just about to explode. Why? Because after this confirmation coming, and it is very close, that's all I do. I'm in DC. I'm trying to follow from the outside, not the inside. I'm not an insider like an Elizondo. Oh, I have a lot of contacts and see stuff, but I can't say this and I can't say that and I can't do this. I get it. It's okay. I don't have that problem. I see what I see and what's going on, and I can say whatever the hell I want about it. And what I'm saying is we are there. It is practically done. The cake is baked. It's all over the place. On 2 days, there's going to be a skiff, multiple witnesses with Luna finally going to get that skiff. God knows what's going to come out of that. And then on the 1st, and I had to change my flight to get back, they're holding the second UAP Disclosure Fund event on Capitol Hill. They held one before, back on November 13th, in which a number of individuals, people in Congress, witnesses, things like that, not going to get a hearing. They're going to have a nice round table discussing all these things, and they're going to broadcast it to the world from the Capitol. And I'm going back, and I'll be there at 4:30 in the morning, and by God, I will get in the audience. Only not like last time, where 500 people cut in front of me, and I have the 4th row. I'm going to be in the front row, because nobody's going to cut in front of me this time. I'm going to have to get aggressive. Right? And then, after all of that, on the 12th, Luna says she's going to have the next hearing, which may include Bob Salas and several of the other nuclear witnesses, which we'll be working on. And if it doesn't, there'll be a hearing after that. It's all over the place, in films, in docs. It's done. It's just a matter of getting disclosure. And you may say, well, what is that? Does it mean another witness comes forward or another insider comes out? No, that's not disclosure. A really big article in the New York Times? No, that's not disclosure. The President of the United States will step out in the East Room and confirm this presence. And that will be one of the most important events that any president will ever do. And it's going to be Donald Trump. And I am going to applaud and be thrilled, all right? But for those of you that are uncomfortable with that, I understand this. Within days, other heads of state of the major nations and nuclear powers will follow suit like that. They are not going to sit back and go, well, you know, no, could be true, not be true. They're not going to take back seat. They got their own evidence. They've got their own witnesses. They've got plenty of docs. They're going to come out and say absolutely, and it's going to be a global thing. Right? A global thing. Multiple leaders addressing this issue, and we then begin the post-disclosure world. And when that happens, the day after, I'm just saying, just about any sensible, educated person in this country is going to immediately want to call up a contactee. That one that they shined on at a Christmas dinner like 10 years ago. Gonna call Shirley up and go, Shirley, you know, I had no idea what you said. It's true. It's what. Come over. Let's have a dinner. Whatever. You're gonna be in great demand. And the press, of course. Why? Because all contactees, but remember, the majority, I believe, are women, is that if you want to find out about ETs, you go talk to a contactee. They've hung out with them. They've been up there. They've talked to them. They've seen them. They've drawn them. You want to talk. Contactees are going to be incredibly important, and I am hoping that the women contactees take advantage of that and say, okay, we are now a force. We have the goods. Everybody wants to know us, and we have information. So let's get together and turn that into power. I want to see that women contactees and all contactees go political, create political entities that will try to influence policy, funded by thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of contactees that want to see what they know turned into change. That is what could be ahead, folks. I look forward to talking about that again.
Yes.
Bye.
Thank you.
Can I get my 4 beautiful ladies up here for a group photo? I'm going to Art's Deli for a pastrami sandwich. So it's on Ventura, it's that way, towards Studio City. Art's Deli on Ventura. They probably have a bunch of tables, no reservations, but if anyone wants to have a pastrami sandwich with me, Art's Deli Studio City.
Hey, Michael, pleasure. You should tell him. Yeah, he's already good. You should tell him.
Lisa, where's your
Hollywood?
It's shiny.
Deli.
But we have that.
Oh, that's Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Hey, girls, are you at the highway? We gotta take off so we can get the oven heated up.
Be careful.